Welcome to The Pandemic Has Created a Mental Health Crisis, Schools, Mental Health, and What Teens Have to Say, provided by the PA Care Partnership Grant in association with the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, also known as OMSAS. In 2018, the Jewish Healthcare Foundation was searching for a way to work with youth and young adults interested in advocating for mental health improvements. As a result, the PA Care Partnership connected with the Jewish Healthcare Foundation to hold a summit in Harrisburg with system professionals, community members, and government legislators so the youth could speak to those who could help create the policy changes they sought. It was a powerful day for the youth and young adults in attendance. The Youth Advocacy Network was born as a result of this shared event. We are delighted to have a panel from the Youth Advocacy Network join us today. Now, here's the housekeeping part. During the presentation, we'd like you all to use the Q&A, which you'll find if you run your mouse along the bottom of the screen, and please put any questions that you have in the Q&A. There will be, I'm gonna let Jamal tell you the rest, but for now, let me say, today's moderators are part of the PA Care Partnership. Jamal Ford is our Q&A monitor, and me, Nancy Massey, will be monitoring the chat. Take it away, Jamal.
Thank you, Nancy. Good afternoon, everyone. We're pleased to have the PA Youth Advocacy Network with us today. This panel of teen advocates are here to talk to us about their work as teen advocates with a focus on mental health and what teens need in school and their day-to-day lives. The teen advocates will share with us for the first 45 minutes with Q&A to follow for another 45 minutes. So if you would place your questions in the Q&A feature that you can find if you run your mouse along the bottom of your Zoom screen, and join us as we learn how we can provide needed support and resources for teens in our Commonwealth. And with that, I introduce to you all Connor.
Thank you, Jamal. Could we please get the PowerPoint up?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, hi, everyone. We're really excited to be here on behalf of the PA Youth Advocacy Network, which is a group based mostly in Pittsburgh, but we do have people from all across the state. So thank you so much to the PA Care Partnership for giving us this platform. We've so appreciated the assistance and feedback from you, Nancy and Jamal, as we crafted this panel for everyone to watch. We're also really excited because you've been here with us since the very beginning. I haven't even been here as long as you have, Jamal, with all of our Advocacy Network meetings. So thank you so much for what you've done for us. And we're excited now to have the mic to speak to you all. So what we're here to talk about today is youth and mental health in schools. Youth deserve a voice, first and foremost. We're not only leaders of tomorrow, but we're also the leaders of today. That's something that a city council person of Pittsburgh told me last year that has stuck with me to this day. Also, happy Mental Health Action Day. I feel like this is a pretty fitting way to celebrate it for everyone watching. And yeah, with that, if we could just go to the next slide to get a little bit of background. And by the way, we're easy to search on Instagram or Twitter and our website as well if you'd like to learn more about us. But the PA Youth Advocacy Network exists through the generosity of the Jewish Healthcare Foundation, which is a healthcare and activist foundation committed to health and social reform. Essentially, they're our bigger picture, but we are the smaller picture, and that's what we're here to focus on today. So if we could go to the next slide for a little bit more foundations about the network. So the PA Youth Advocacy Network is a collection of young people and adults and organizations all across the state. And what we try to do is build a safety net for teen mental health and push that needle forward, or whatever advocacy looks like in a given year. Some of the activities that we've been lucky enough to partake in include speaking directly with elected officials in Harrisburg, which we kind of mentioned in the beginning. We also attend workshops and trainings to lead and advocate for teen mental health supports. And we also are able to meet other youth advocates across the region and across the whole entire Commonwealth. All the panelists today, all 5 of us, are from different regions of the state, which is very exciting. A fun fact though, the first event that I ever participated with, just as a participant with the Advocacy Network, is on the screen. as well as something from more recently last year, where we were able to get a proclamation signed by the governor and city council of Pittsburgh, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But it just shows and speaks to the growth you can have as part of the network, and really exciting to talk about. So if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So here's the proclamation. Definitely the highlight of our advocacy, in my opinion, as a network, and also just like personally in my life. Obviously a figure in the news recently, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman spoke with an equal microphone to myself and other teen advocates. It was so empowering as I stood there, surrounded by community members, school staff, parents, friends, given an equal microphone, an equal voice, and equal speaking time to these elected officials in big name jobs. It was also exciting to see Governor Wolf sign our proclamation. These words were written directly by us, and we were so excited to see him sign it and therefore support what we were doing. Subconsciously then, or consciously, we know that our state government is working the best that they can to pass teen mental health friendly legislation. We could please go to the next slide to talk a little bit more about the network. All of us panelists came together and were able to meet each other due to our teen mental health advocacy series. This was a very exciting 8-week educational series where we taught over 25 youth all things advocacy. So things like communications, advocacy plans, how you research, how to network, how to get things done, really. And it was very exciting. The series was focused on a series of 6 ideas that we had come up with a couple months prior as a network as key focus areas to mental health. So things on the screen such as everyday activism, mental health curriculum, mental health days for schools, raising awareness, and preventing substance abuse disorders. And you can also see there the visual of where all of the youth came from. So it's very exciting to see that not only are we a Pittsburgh group, but we're also an entire Pennsylvania group. And then if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So now we're going to discuss and meet with our panelists quickly before we share our stories. So first, if I could just have Anisha introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Anisha Kandala and I am a junior at Susquehanna High School. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Anisha. My name is Connor Dalgard and I go to West Allegheny High School, where I'll be graduating from in a few weeks. So in the coming months, I'll be attending Vassar College as a first year studying psychology and economics. And I'm very excited to be here talking about mental health. We also have Dayana, who will be playing a video of her story. She goes to Mercy Career and Technical High School in Philadelphia County, but is a busy teen. She's on the way home from school right now, so she'll be here to join us later. Next, Giovanna, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Giovanna Sella, Gia for short. I'm currently a 9th grader at Wyoming Seminary, which is located in Luzerne County.
Awesome. And last but not least, Elwin.
Hi everyone, I'm Elwin Sorrow. I'm a junior from Bonner and Prendy High School in Drexel Hill, PA.
Thanks, Elwin. And then Jamal, we could go to the next slide and we can start. So we're finally ready to begin. Again, quickly, the way that this will work is each of us youth will get about 5 minutes to share our own personal stories about youth mental health in schools. After that, though, we want to engage in an open conversation with you audience members through the chat and Q&A. So please put any of your questions, targeted questions preferred. So while we're sharing, if you have something specific to our stories, that makes it a lot easier to share and answer if you put like our names, dash, and then your question. But yeah, since there are so many of you, I think we're approaching 300. The sooner you ask your questions, the more likely they are to be answered. So make sure to get your questions in as fast as possible. But with that, I'll begin my story. So what I'm here today to talk about is technology, schools, and mental health. So at my school specifically, technology usage has greatly increased because of the pandemic. It was sort of a necessary thing, if you think about it, shifting to online school. We needed devices to interact with our teachers, interact with our classmates, and turn in assignments. So in my school, every student at the high school was given a Chromebook laptop, and it was really actually very nice. I appreciated having a laptop now that I could do for school and use it for any assignments I had. And I'm also very lucky though at my school because in the entire 2021-2022 school year, we were open in person. So from March 2020 to the end of that year, we were online, but then right up, just like normal the next year, we were able to come back in person, but we still kept the Chromebooks, we still kept the technology. And so what I have since learned is that it's really tough to find a balance between personal work and school technology. It's a great thing because education can increase, it's more democratized now that everyone has a laptop and devices in my school district to log on, check our grades, turn in assignments, email teachers. But it's also tough because something that was an outlet for so many people has now become associated with school. The image that I like to use to describe this is as I'm laying in bed at 9 o'clock at night, maybe watching a TV show on my phone or texting with friends, sometimes I'll be getting notifications from school, notifications about grades, emails from teachers, and a time that should be being used by me for self-care, to relax, to decompress after a tough day is just turning into more school. So I have some tips for anyone that has young people in school. If you're a young person yourself, it's important that you set boundaries between work and life and school and life. So turn off any notifications that are not, totally urgent. Also be sure that you are personally, yourself, not going to always be working on school 100% of the time. It's so easy to fall into that trap of, now that I have this Chromebook, that means that from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. when I'm at home, I should be doing work because I have all the tools. It's not like it's a poster board that I left in the class that I'm supposed to be working on. It's a paper that's on my laptop that I can see right in front of me and access at any time. Another thing, though, that I'd like to touch on with technology in schools is school clubs and advocacy opportunities outside of school. All of the advocacy that I've done over the past 3 to 4 years has been a combination of both in-person and online. So when I came into high school, I joined a couple clubs. Stand Together, I see some Stand Together advisors in the chat, which I was happy to see. Their logo is right there. I'm kind of blocking it with my shoulder. But they're an awesome mental health group based in Allegheny County that works with schools. And I joined, I loved it. But then when the pandemic happened, we had to shift everything online. So I started advocating online from my Chromebook. So the picture, in case you're wondering, is me giving my first ever panel talk in 2021. It was actually the day after I got my appendix removed. So I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that in person. So that's a good thing about technology. And it was a great experience. I was able to engage with people across the state like we are today. And it was really nice to see. So ultimately, what I want to push to all of you to understand is that online opportunities and increasing technology in school and in the world because of the pandemic has the opportunity to both engage teens, but also hurt their mental health. It's great because there's no geographic barriers or transportation worries to engage in conversations with friends or with advocacy groups. It's also great because you can get caught up on schoolwork or get ahead if you need to. But it's also bad because it leads you to overuse technology. It hurts your eyes, it hurts your mental health. It blurs the line between reality and virtual reality. And I never want to speak to someone, I never want to speak for everyone, sorry, but when I spend too much time on social media, I start to feel isolated and I start to feel worse had I not just been on social media at all. So ultimately, adults can foster connections and urge participation when speaking online and virtually with groups of people. And youth can also speak freely and network with each other, like Giovanna, Anisha, Elwin, and Dayana and I all have from different regions of the state when we never would have been able to otherwise. But that's the end of my story. I'd like to now hand it over to Anisha to share hers.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Today, my topic is going to circulate around the how and the why into creating different clubs and groups within your school. If everyone could take a look at the image on the screen, that'd be very helpful. Note how many results show up when I type in teens feel unheard in school into Google. 15,300,000 results. 15,300,000 cases, stories, and encounters of teens not feeling heard in school. You might ask yourself why? Why so many? Believe it or not, school is one of the few common grounds that all teenagers share. We all get up 5 days a week and go through the day just to do it all over again for 12 contiguous years. It is a common denominator through each person's life, for better or for worse. With this in mind, one has to question why school impacts how a teenager is treated and why this treatment is not always positive. How is it that a school, which is for the kids, does not take into consideration the child's emotions and experiences before building up an entire curriculum and day-to-day life and routine for them? How have we let this happen for so long? Now this, in my humble opinion, is why we need to implement clubs and different groups into schools that work towards promoting inclusivity and positivity throughout the school environment. Now, a few of you may be wondering, how should this be done? Well, in my opinion, the most important thing is to talk to the teens. As I mentioned, the school system is for the betterment of children or teenagers. It is incredibly important to consider the audience one is catering to before moving forward, which is why you, as adults, parents, teachers, and other inspirational individuals, must really do what you can to value the teenagers' opinions throughout all that you do. It is very, very important that you do this. Do your research. As adults, many people walk through life with the idea that they know everything or do not need to reach out for help or aid in their work. Now, this is not always true. It is 100% okay, and even more so important, to do research before resolving problems. When it comes to teenagers especially, one may need all the help that they can get. And now there are so many different clubs and groups that can be implemented into a school. In my school, for example, there are clubs like the Multicultural Club, the Four Club, Alliance, and Avidum that work towards bettering the school environment for the teens. And I'm a member of all of these clubs, as well as the president of my school's Avidum Club. So I do have a little bit of firsthand knowledge of the kinds of benefits there are to doing research and finding new strategies to implement into one's school. I know from experience that getting feedback from everyone in my school and doing the right and proper amount of research is very, very, very important. You really get to learn about the demographic in your school, and that reflects the action that you actually do. Now, as adults, you can really help in this. If you're not aware, most clubs in school are student run with an advisor or a teacher correspondent. So we don't really need someone to take over, if that makes sense. However, we do need adults for some things. Please try and do your part, because since we are teens, we still need help from adults to make connections and actually carry out our plans. You as adults and advisors need to help with this in order for clubs to actually thrive in a school. Remember, it is definitely a collaborative effort between teacher or adult and the actual student or teenager. Now, as Connor mentioned, today is May 19th, so it is Mental Health Action Day. So happy Mental Health Action Day, everybody. So it is very, very important for you as the inspiring individuals that you are to take action and provide support where needed. Remember that the children, teens, students, and other younger individuals that you interact with, myself included, every day, are going to be the leaders of tomorrow and are already the leaders of today. We are the future, and we deserve to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anisha. That number of search results is very eye-opening, and I'm sure that it's a symbol that'll stay with a lot of people that are on the call right now. I know personally, clubs have been so influential because they started my rise to advocacy and got me where I am today. Not to mention, they also made me really involved with my school, meet a lot of new friends and new teachers that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So I'm super grateful for clubs. Also, if anyone's wondering or would like a framework to go about when deciding how a youth-adult partnership should work, especially if you want to make a school club or if you work with children, you've probably heard of it, Hart's Ladder of Participation. It's something that I refer to a lot in some of my various roles in advocacy. Also, if everyone watching has the power to get youth involved in a club somehow, whether you're a parent and have children, whether you work in a school setting, it's super, super important to get us as involved as we possibly can be. But next, we're going to pass it over to Gia. So Gia, take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. Today, I will be speaking about resources, more specifically mental health resources in school. And everything I'm talking about today is based off of my personal experiences and experiences of friends and family. So I'll start by saying, what is a mental health resource? I define a mental health resource as a place where a person in need can turn to get support and help. So some examples that come to mind are counselors and hotlines, which I will talk about later. So what is the problem with these resources? Well, they're very limited. there's a harmful stigma around them, especially in schools. Some of the resources we have can be uncomfortable to engage with. And there's a general lack of education around mental health issues, which is creating that limited amount of resources. So first I'm going to talk about the harmful stigma in schools. So especially I find that there is a stigma around mental health in school. You might hear, oh, this person, I heard they're depressed. This person got sent to the counselors, which creates a very harmful kind of aura around mental health issues. It's very discouraging to try and seek out help when you know your peers don't necessarily support you. So that's something that's very important to try and end. Try to talk about it more to try and end that stigma and hopefully make people comfortable enough to reach out. So one of the resources, if we do decide to resort to, would be a counselor. Almost every school has one. I think there is some sort of law around that. I'm not positive though. But why aren't counselors the best option all the time? Well, first of all, they can be extremely awkward. If you aren't comfortable talking to a friend or family about something really personal, it's really hard to talk to a complete stranger about something that is going on with you that you're not sure about. It's very hard to trust somebody like that. And then sometimes it can feel like a punishment. It's a big, scary office where you have to sit one-on-one with a stranger, and you can't leave there until you get help or until they're satisfied with how much information you provide. And there is like this, like I said earlier, stigma around counselors. You hear all the horror stories about it, like this one called my parents and told them something I didn't want to tell them. This one did this one did that, which is not necessarily true, but because of stigma, it has become something that is like scary and everybody's concerned about. So that's one of the things that would prevent teens from going and reaching out. So beyond counseling and stigma, there's a general lack of education in mental health issues. This means that a lot of people aren't resources themselves. When you are educated around mental health issues, you are becoming a resource. You are a person that someone can turn to get help in times of need, which is extremely powerful. But because of a lack of education, there aren't a lot of people like that, which can make people feel isolated, which is why I'm going to draw attention to the picture right now, which is what it feels like when you don't really have any resources. You can see a wave about to crash on you, but you have nowhere to turn, nowhere to hide. You're just stuck and you have to face it all by yourself. And then with the lack of education, it's hard to recognize mental illness inside yourself. You might not know that something, you can get help for it. If you can't recognize anxiety in yourself because you don't know what it is, how are you supposed to get help and better yourself and provide relief for yourself if you don't even know what it is? So that's really important too. And then all the resources we currently have also feel like they're only for emergencies. I'm talking specifically about hotlines. There's something for an absolute emergency where we can reach out to, but there's nothing for what if I'm having a bad day? And those bad days can really add up. And eventually it might spiral into something that is like an emergency, which is what we're trying to avoid. So those like only few resources that are for very drastic situations aren't necessarily helping everyone. We need a more varied web of resources. And then as Connor mentioned earlier, right now, especially during the pandemic, teens are on the computers. Some cannot even go into school due to COVID. And there's not enough resources online to support us. I've talked to friends and family, and it's very hard, especially when you're not in a school setting where a counselor is open or where teachers are open, to find other places to go. You're kind of on your own. It's hard to reach out to friends and family even when you're stuck by yourself in your room. But enough about that. How are you supposed to help add more resources and just generally educate people more? Well, the first step is to educate yourself. The internet is wide, and you can learn a lot about mental health illnesses and everything like that, where you can become a resource yourself. You can make some of your friends and family feel less alone, which is one step further into the process. The next thing is to support anybody trying to make resources. Like Anisha talked about with clubs, you should support youth who are trying to create something like a club, because it is providing resources for other students and is also helping end the stigma at the same time, which is making it more accessible to reach out to the resources we currently have. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing, Gia. I definitely saw a lot of overlap as you were sharing between what you and Anisha were saying, because I feel like clubs are a good resource. You can kill two birds with one stone if you make an anti-stigma club as well, like what we have at my school, Stand Together, and Anisha's school with the VDM. Mental health is obviously so intersectional, and these experiences, like we just heard, show how across the state there are similarities that exist in all of our stories. Stigma also, I think, in my opinion, plays into that lack of resources and the lack of use of resources. There are resources there, but as you said, it feels like we can only use them in an emergency, or we can only use them if we have a diagnosis. What happens when you just have a bad day and don't want to make it turn into 5 bad days or something much worse? But thanks for sharing. And next up we have Elwin. So Elwin, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Connor. Hello, everyone. Like I said earlier, I'm Elwin Sarau, and I want to start off my bit with talking about an exercise that we did during our advocacy series a couple weeks ago, where we each chose a picture to represent mental health and explain our thoughts on it. I chose the self-portrait of Vincent van Gogh, where he highlights his ear wound. Now, a lot of us know that Van Gogh cut off his ear, and we just sort of think, oh, that's kind of interesting. But I think that this type of thinking reflects a problem in our society that we can solve. See, no one really thinks about what brought Van Gogh to the point where he cut off his own ear. Not many people would have seen his expressions of loneliness and depressions as things that he would need help with until his suicide about a year after this picture was painted. Here lies the problem. We often only recognize the signs of poor mental health after tragedy strikes. We see this a lot in schools. There are tons of instances where students struggle with problems, and only after some crisis happens do teachers and friends say that they saw signs, but they didn't really recognize that something really deep was going on. Something that could help with this is having teachers trained in seeing issues and reaching out. A friend of mine benefited from a teacher like this. Her math teacher saw that she really wasn't feeling as energetic as she normally was, and she was less motivated. And one day he pulled her aside and asked, "Hey, is everything okay?" Then she opened up to him about some of her personal issues, and he helped her get in touch with our guidance department to start sorting out these issues. This teacher reaching out helped her get through a very difficult time. And if more teachers could see things like this in their students, there's a chance that more students would have an experience like my friend. Now, going to guidance was not the end of her struggles. In fact, I've talked to some of my peers who go to my school and who go to other schools about their experiences with their counselors. A lot of the same issues popped up, and they need to be addressed. For starters, in some schools, there are wait times to talk to a counselor. In one case, I was told that if the guidance department got back to a student, which they don't always do, they would have to wait 2 weeks to talk to someone. Another issue is that some counselors just don't have the experience that can help solve problems. In my school, we lost 2 of our most experienced counselors, and they were replaced by ones who were a lot younger, and they weren't really as helpful as the previous ones. Another issue that I heard across the board was that counselors would not follow up with students. This puts the responsibility on the student to reach out, and that can be difficult for anyone, regardless of if they're struggling or if they're just having a bad day. Now, these problems don't have easy solutions, and finding these solutions requires work from all people involved. But the good news is that even with all of these problems, there are still some good ideas that are being implemented in guidance departments. One thing that I was told was that some departments really emphasize that students can talk about really whatever they have on their mind. A lot of students have the impression that counselors are only there for helping people with either their studies or if they're having some really serious issue. And crushing these false impressions encourages more people to reach out. An idea that a student had was having counselors talk to teachers on how they can make things easier for students. This would create more teachers like the one who helped my friend. Another idea that came up multiple times was having counselors reach out to students. If, at the very least, once a year, each student has a meeting with their counselors to get to know them. This way, they would not be strangers, and it would make them more comfortable to reach out. There might even be people who are called in who have something to say, but they either were not able to reach out or something was going on where they just couldn't. And this system would give them a chance to have a conversation. Recognizing problems before a crisis takes place is a challenge for anyone, but taking steps to tackle this challenge can make a difference in so many lives. And I want you all to know that just by being here and wanting to learn about this, you are being a part of that difference. Thank you all.
Thank you, Owen. I totally see and hear you, and I'm sure that a lot of youth across the state feel similarly about guidance departments. In my school, for instance, a little time between our stories to make it more efficient and easier to get in touch with guidance counselors, we have a QR code that we can scan on our phones to get our names down and hopefully get in as soon as possible. But our counselors are always very adamant in saying that if there is a crisis, you can always walk right in. Also, in case anyone's wondering, the national population for the ratio of school counselors to students is 1 to 250. If you think about whatever school you attend or have attended, work for, work near, or send your children to, I would bet that that recommendation is unfortunately not being met. It also seems clear, though, based on your story, that the role of the teacher is expanding. That's something that I've seen in my school as well. They're not only there anymore to lecture and quiz us, but in some cases they can act as interim school counselors if necessary. But on another note, I see Diana joined us, but we're going to play a video recording of her valuable perspective. But while Jamal gets the video ready, if everyone in the chat could just put maybe one word that's coming to mind as we're sharing, whether it be important, something you hadn't thought of before, surprising, informative, anything like that. I'd love to see it just for some feedback, because this is pretty nerve-wracking for us. We're all a bunch of teenagers speaking to adults and influential people. We're up close to 300 now, but we're very excited to be here and want to use this opportunity to the fullest extent.
Thank you, Connor. Good afternoon, everyone. So I have a quote that I would like everybody just to take a minute to think about as I read it. And the quote is, "It's amazing how far you can go just because someone believed in you." And just think about believed again. Okay, so the reason why I had this quote is because I'm going to bring it to the topic that I want to talk about today, which is what family support means to me. And family support means a lot to me because it has a positive impact on my mental health overall, in my school community, when I'm working on my job, different things like that. So one good example of that is the relationship that I had with me and my grandfather and I. My grandfather is a big support when it comes to my mental health. I could talk to him about anything that I'm struggling with, my fears, my stress, my anxiety, different things that I go through. I could talk to him about it. And even if he don't understand fully, I know that I can count on him to listen, to not judge me, to not beat me down or say or make me feel bad because I feel a certain way or because my mental health is not always fully where I want it to be. One thing I really appreciate about him, as being as older as he is, he's like turning 67 this year. He's really understanding pop. Like we be in the car, we be in his like room and stuff, and we'll be talking about different things. But in school, like one week I was really struggling because I had so many test projects. I was working, I was doing extracurriculars, and it was just very so much stress on me. It was to the point where like I was crying. And so when I was talking to him about it, he encouraged me to not give up, but to also take breaks. Like, it's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to feel like you want to give up, but don't let that stop you. Like, what I go through doesn't define who I am. It's just what I'm going through at the moment. So he explained to me what I can do to better manage my time management, stress, and not say always yes to everything. Because sometimes I say yes to everything. And he teaches me a lot of things on how to deal with my mental health. And I love the fact that even if he don't understand, he tries to see where I'm coming from so he can help me understand better. And I think a lot of the older people that I experienced in my communities, they don't really understand what mental health is or know what it is. Because growing up in their eras, they never really dealt with things like that. But growing up, I feel like in our generation, we deal with more mental health. A lot of teens and young people not knowing who to talk to or who they can turn to because they feel like their parents won't understand or their family won't understand. And I feel like family support is important. And family support don't always mean that that your mom and dad is raising you. Sometimes they could be a brother or a sister, an aunt, uncle, your cousins, your school community, whoever. So I think overall, it makes my mental health way better that I know that I have a support system with me, and that's my family. And overall, it boosts my confidence. It makes me feel more happier and lighter that I could talk to somebody, which is my grandpa, and I know I could take my burdens and my things that's going on with me and talk to him about it because I'm upset. I also noticed that with my friend, her parents are very supportive of her mental health also. And they both encourage us to take mental health breaks, to take some time for ourselves. And even though we have a lot of priorities as being a teenager and a high schooler, that we make time for ourselves also. I noticed also with my grandpa, with some older people, they're very judgmental or they don't understand. So they judge based off of the fact that they don't know and they have a lot of ignorance to it. But my grandpa doesn't do that as an older man, and I really appreciate that. And by him and me struggling with my mental health ever since I was like younger, like in middle school days, and as I got older, I started to really understand myself. Um, it made me decide the career choice that I wanted to go into and that I'm really passionate about, which is to be a child and adolescent psychologist. And I want to encourage other young people to take care of themselves, to take care of their mental health. The importance it is to have support with your mental health and what to do, because it's one thing to know that you might have something or you might be going through something, but it's another thing to know what to do when those things actually happen. Like, I knew I had stress, but when my pop-up started to teach me what to do in the moment that you are stressing out, it felt so much better. So I want to be someone that I can educate our younger generations and to just keep passing that forth on that mental health is important. And I just want to say thank you all for listening.
Awesome. So as we get the PowerPoint back up, it was great to hear recorded, Diana, how close of a relationship you have with your family. The students who don't have that support though, that's where the adult allies come in, and all of you watching. Family is definitely much more than just your blood relatives. And I'm sure that one day you're gonna make an incredible child psychologist. That much is clear. And don't worry, you'll be able to ask Diana questions live and in person as we move into the Q&A portion. So over the past 45 minutes, if we could just head to the next slide quickly, you've heard teen perspectives on technology, resources, clubs, guidance departments, academic challenges, social media, family supports, and so many other things that go into the mental health of young people in schools. We also want to be sure, though, that we're not vilifying those that are working hard right now. I know guidance counselors are worked incredibly hard and stretched incredibly thin, and I'm lucky enough to say that at my school, I have great relationships with all of the counselors and know that they're incredible people. Also, we're just here to push the needle forward. If we change one person's mind, one adult's mind, if we start one conversation between a young person and adult, then we've accomplished our goal. Thank you all for coming out, logging on, or showing support in whatever way you do. I personally feel like what we just did was very powerful, but maybe that's just me. I'm sure it's not though. I cannot imagine though, all the stories that we're leaving out by only including our 5 perspectives. So check in with all of the youth in your life, whether you're working in a school setting, if you have children, grandchildren, young neighbors, any youth in your life, we want to share our stories, and we're excited to continue doing so. On the screen now, you should be seeing some information about our Teen Mental Health Rally coming up this weekend. It's very exciting. We're celebrating teen mental health awareness because of some recent proclamation signings from, again, the state and city level and some counties as well. So you can learn more information about that at the link and register. You'll hear from some of the same speakers today, but also some new ones. So like what I just said, it's great if you can join because you'll get to hear more perspectives on mental health. But with that, I think we're ready to move into the Q&A.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Gia, Elwin, Nisha, and Deanna. Y'all brought up some very important topics that we have a ton of questions about right now. So I'm going to hop right into some of the questions, see if we can get some of your perspective on what you think about these. So the first question that came in wasn't in for anybody specific. So what I will say is if you feel comfortable answering it, just please to do so. It's from Jennifer, and she wants to know what can those of us who are professionals in a high school setting do to better support teens through the aftermath of the pandemic? I know as adults, we've heard a lot about things that have been happening in school, kids not coming back to school, and the mental health is rising. So what do you think people who work in schools can do to help you all? Go ahead, Anisha.
I think the most important thing is just to be a good listener. As I touched on during my presentation, a lot of teens just feel really, really unheard, and that's obviously very difficult to deal with. So if you do, as adults or teachers, want to provide support, just really focus on learning and kind of enforcing the idea of active listening, because if you do so, I personally feel that teens will feel like you actually really, really care about us, especially coming back from the pandemic, where we've all had obviously a lot of very bad difficulties and experiences. I think just being heard and being cared about is a really, really big step that can definitely make us feel a lot better about ourselves and a lot more confident in talking to you guys about our problems and getting your help and support.
For that answer. Move on to the next question. It's from Brittany. This one is addressed to Connor. You mentioned great reasons why technology has helped you in the classroom, emails, checking grades, etc. I've noticed that technology affects me personally in my ability to focus and concentrate on different tasks throughout the day. Would you advocate for classic forms of education, i.e. pencil and paper, over technology?
Thank you for that question. And I do have an answer, so I'm not deflecting. But Elwin, did you want to say something quickly about the last question about what people in schools can do?
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to jump on what Anisha said, where I feel like there really isn't just one solution. It's a lot of different issues that people in schools are dealing with, and sort of the best way to take care of that is deal with them personally, but also get their opinions on how, as a whole institution, that the school can help make the situation better for each student.
Thank you, Ella. I'm sorry, I didn't see you wanted to chime in on that. I apologize.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I totally agree, Owen. But to that question about which one I would advocate for, I would actually advocate for neither. I would advocate for whatever the student wants. So student voice is important in a place like a school. It should be students making the decisions and not always teachers, especially when you think about how there's usually like 20 to 30 students and then one teacher. It shouldn't always be just the teacher who determines what all the students do. So, you know, me personally, yes, I also like to do traditional pen and paper things, and that's what I'm able to do now. So we're kind of in a stage where some teachers at my school use only digital things. Some teachers are going back to pen and paper. But I found that the most successful classes and the ones that I enjoy the most are the ones where the teacher says, here's the virtual option. You can do this if you prefer. If you're not going to be in school one day this week, do this virtual option so you can do it from home. But if you're going to be here, if you focus better with a pen and paper, you can do this option. So that's what I would say. Just whatever the student wants, or just present both options so that students have the authority and power to choose which one that they want better.
That's a great answer. Kind of, I always think, you know, we all learn so differently. You know what I mean? Some of us are pen and paper people. Some of us would prefer technology, virtual, all of that. Some of us are on the job learners. But I think keeping those things into consideration and offering options is a great idea. So Nafisa has a question, and I thought this one was a really powerful question. It's not addressed to anyone in particular. So again, if you would raise your hand if you feel comfortable answering. She says she has a teenage daughter that suffers from several mental health issues. As a professional in the field, I know many resources. However, as a mom, sometimes it's very difficult to connect with my child as I'm unsure what she expects me to do. What advice would you give to parents in terms of dealing with their mental health in their child and balancing the role of mom versus professional? Go ahead, Gia. And then I see you, Diana.
All right, I think that's a wonderful question. And I think just from personal experiences, the best way you can help your child is just be there. And that can mean a lot of different things. I think it's very personal. So for example, if your child is someone who really likes physical touch, lots of hugs would be really supportive. If your child is somebody who likes words of affirmation, doing just that is perfect. And I think that's a great way to support people, just to show that you are there for them and you are there if they need help. And it's, like I said, making yourself a resource, which is really helpful. And it just feels very nice to know that somebody's there and they know who you are, they know what you like, and they can provide for you.
Diana, you want to take a shot at it?
Yeah, I have to agree with Gia. I feel like it's like important as yourself to be a resource. And I would just say also to just be patient. Like with my grandpa, it was some days where I never wanted to say anything and I just wanted to feel like a little kid and just to be held, like for me personally. And I feel like he was just patient. I didn't even want to say nothing. And we just sat in silence for like 20 minutes until I said something. So I totally agree with Gia. I feel like being a resource and just being patient and figuring out maybe what like your child or person needs in order to, for them to feel comfortable.
Elwin?
Right. And I think something that's really important is making sure that you don't treat her like a patient, right? Like I have a friend whose parent is a doctor, and whenever something goes wrong, they always just jump into doctor mode. And sometimes like students and children need more just mom who just listens instead of someone who like jumps into their role and treats you as a patient. So I think definitely help her connect with resources that that you think would help her, but also just make sure that you're a mom and make sure that you don't treat her as, like someone who you see every day. Or that's a horrible way of phrasing it, but as a patient who you see every day rather than your daughter.
Thank you, guys. Anyone else? Good. Okay. So Angela has a question, and this one is directed for Anisha. She would like to know which club or committee supports your positive mental health the best or the most.
Okay, that is a wonderful question, by the way. Thank you so much for asking. I might be a little bit biased in responding because I am the president of this club at my school, but the Avidum Club is such a beautiful club. And the idea, I'm not sure how many people know what the Avidum Club is, but our slogan is, I've got your back. So our main thing is having your back and being there for you no matter what, which I think is such a beautiful message, especially because like right now, a lot of people feel like they don't have anyone, whether that's in the form of like another peer or a parent or a teacher or anybody else. So I think like clubs like that, I know a couple of us are in a couple more clubs that you are free to talk about, but the main one in my school is definitely the Avidum Club, because our main thing is just, you know, inspiring kindness and making sure that people know that they truly are not alone, and that their feelings are always 100% valid and matter so much, because again, people don't always feel like they are heard, but the most important thing is to be heard and to be loved. So thank you.
Thank you, Anisha. The next question is for Gia. Angela would like to know, she says, you feel speaking openly with teens about mental health issues will remove the stigma. How can caring adults help with opening up the dialogue with teens?
That is such a wonderful question. Yes, I think any form of conversation about mental health is helping end the stigma, because it is making it something more known, and more known will automatically become more accepted, because people are therefore becoming more educated during those conversations. So I think the best way to open up those conversations is basically what you said. It's just being open and mentioning it, or like providing for, especially a student, it's just like, I'll offer you a break for your mental health when you need it. Just mentioning it here and there is very powerful, and it can help end stigma. And I think that's one of the best ways to do it. Almost be subtle about it. And it's really helpful just to hear that once in a while, especially when you're seeking that out in a conversation. And just hearing that word can help end stigma. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gia. I'm going through the questions, and there are a lot of questions directed your way, Gia, but I'm going to ask this one to Connor specifically, though it's not directed at him. I feel like it was the topic that he was speaking to. And it says, it's from Brittany, and it says, attention to mental health has been an increasingly popular topic. Do you feel technology, our access to the world, and having information at your fingertips all the time have contributed to the decline in mental health, especially among teens?
Yeah, I would say among other things, yes. I think that the blame can't be placed squarely on technology, because it's just a more stressful world now than it was 50 years ago. But there's certainly the potential for it to worsen your mental health when you exist online in an echo chamber of the same thing over and over again. It can be tough to then go back into the real world and try to live like you had pre-pandemic. But at the same time, if you surround yourself with the right resources and follow, positive accounts on social media and things like that, it can definitely be a good thing. I know that I myself have connected with a lot of great people, learned a lot of great tips for self-care, been able to get involved with many groups all online. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would say. But I will say, as a young person, something that my friends and I have all done recently has been creating news boundaries. We talk about it a lot in the sense of like activist burnout. Like, it's tough when you work really hard on something like mental health or any issue really, and then everything that you see about it in the news is negative. Or then you turn on the news and you see stigmatizing language being used, for example, in an incident of violence or something like that. And it can be tough. It can hurt our mental health. So it's important, when necessary, that you can step back from technology. And when you have so much technology and when we become dependent on it, that's when the issue happens, when we can't step back when we need it.
Appreciate that answer. Gia, Sharon would like to know, how would you help teens in school to use mental health resources in schools and possibly outside of school?
All right, that's another great question. How I would suggest others help is, like we mentioned before, and I answered a question on open conversations that could be destigmatizing. That way, when you do provide resources or the barrier breaks down and you can go and it's a lot easier to seek out those resources. So open conversations are really important. Especially, I think you should ask your teens or the people who you are trying to provide resources for what they think they need. I just think communication and that is really important because you can figure out exactly what they need and you can provide for that. So it can be very personal and feel a lot closer and help a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. I have a general question. Again, if you could raise your hand if you would like to chime in. Aaron posed this question. What advice do you have for parents or adults that are worried about their teen, but the teen won't talk to them? Go ahead, Gia.
All right. I think it's best to just remind somebody that you are there for them, but provide the space. Maybe somebody just wants space to talk to their own feelings and they'll come to you when they're ready. I think it's important to listen to them in that sense. And I feel like just reminding that you are a resource by conversation. You can say, I'm here if you need me, but you can come to me whenever you like. And it's just important to provide them space, but also just remind them that you are a resource and you're there if they ever do need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I can respect that answer. Space can be very important. Giving them the space to decide to have that conversation, but knowing that they can have that conversation when they're ready. I think that's an important thing to, and it's hard as parents sometimes when you see your kids struggling. You want to do any and everything that you can to kind of help your kid, but sometimes it's kind of hard to pull back. But that just pushes away. So I appreciate that answer. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Connor, Aletta would like you to expand on the QR code to use to get in touch with counselors.
Yep, so I did this in the chat in case anyone wants a written proposal to submit to their higher ups to get this in your school. But it's been a really good thing at my school. So because there was a huge number of requests to see our counselors for both mental health, but also academic and like scheduling reasons, it just kind of became too much because it was like the loudest students were the ones being seen, the ones that were comfortable enough walking right in and knocking on a door, or the ones who knew exactly how to write an eloquent email to the counselor were the ones getting their answers and getting their help. To make it easier though for anyone to have access to the counselors, they printed a QR code that was placed in some high traffic areas in our school, and also online, like on our online grading / classroom system. So in case you don't see it at all in school, which is pretty unlikely, you can access it there. But when you scan the QR code, you're directed to a Google form where you put in your name, your counselor's name, because they're sorted by last name at my school. And then you put in the reason for your request with like a text box, whether it be social, academic, mental health, family, friends, anything. And then the counselors then get a list of all the requests they have, and they can chip their way through that list. And it's been a really, really good idea. So thank you, Nancy, for putting that in the chat again. But yeah, definitely has been a positive thing in my school. And I know that a lot of my like shyer or more introverted friends have been able to make better relationships with their counselors because of it.
Thank you, Connor. That kind of leads me into the next question that is for Gia. Tracy would like to know, in what form would you like to see the services provided? Talk, text, online, chat?
All right, I think once again another great question, but I think it kind of ties into what Connor said, but every person is different. And I think just having the most varied amount of resources possible is best. I know some people, like Connor mentioned, are loud and can just knock on a counselor's door or would prefer to talk face to face. But I know even personally, it can be a little bit hard to do that. So having like a texting option is also very helpful for somebody who might not be confident enough to go talk to a stranger face to face. Sometimes it's better just to anonymously text somebody. And I think it's just, like I said, very important to have as wide a range as possible so you can provide for the most amount of people.
Thank you, Tia. Ayana, I have a question for you, ma'am. Could you share a bit about what role friends can play in helping each other's mental health when family support just isn't there?
That is a great question because I can relate to that a lot. So how our friend, well, how my friend group is, it's a group of 5 of us. So it's like we're mutual friends. Like some of them is mutual friends, but they're all like my friends, and we all like kind of have like this one big group chat. So when I'm going through things, or when I might be going through things, for example, I'll call one of my friends. Like we have like different color codes, like red, green. Like red is like it's an emergency. Green means like it's kind of something I want to talk about a little bit, and yellow means yeah, this might be something important that I would like to bring to the attention. So at school we have our group chats, and also my teachers are very understanding. So if we're not feeling good that day, we can step out. So basically what we do is we do a lot of research, and we try to, we talk. Well, I talk to my friends, support me by we talk. So we talk about different things that we're going through. Like sometimes our system is, okay, what's making us so upset? So we talk about that. That's the first step. And then we talk about things of how we can come down back to our comfortable levels. And then after we come back to that comfortable level, like what could we do next? So it's a lot of communication, and that's how like friends, I guess, could support is with communication, space, honesty, and trust, and different things like that. So that's how um friends I feel like could support you if you can't talk to your family, because sometimes it's certain things that we have that we just feel like we can't talk to our families about, and we just have a group where it's just we make it as a trust group. Like whatever we talk about doesn't get told to anybody else, because it's about trust, and communication is key, because if you don't trust that person, then you're not going to be able to talk to your friends about them. And I make sure I'm surrounding myself around friends, and anybody else just surround themselves around friends who's going to support you, for one, who is not going to judge you or try to bash you based on things that they might not even know about, or different things like that. So I'm making sure I'm not staying around people that might talk about other people, or might do things that's not really okay. So I feel like staying around good people, friends that really support you, is key, and just being honest and having a whole bunch of communication.
Great answer, Diana. Thank you.
Jamal,
Go ahead, Nancy.
there's been some chat in the chat about resources, and I suggested that people, if they had resources or knew of resources, could post them in the chat, and then we'll share the chat later with everyone. And so I just wanted to say that out loud in case it wasn't seen in the chat. And I saw someone here asking specifically if anyone knew anything about where there might be mentoring service available in Eastern Pennsylvania. So if you see, a comment or a question in the chat about resources and no one answer, please put it in the chat. And like I said, we'll share it with everyone. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. So Elwin, Angela said she's surprised that the counselors are not mandated to connect with each student they are responsible for supporting. Expecting children or teens to reach out is unrealistic. Do you have any thoughts on what would be a good way for counselors to maybe start that interaction, or maybe create something that may help counselors interact with the students, so that it's not a situation where students are going in to a strange environment or uncomfortable environment to talk to someone that they don't have any kind of relationship with?
Right, that's a pretty heavy question. So I'd say one way that could be helped that could help the situation is maybe having counselors just be involved in more school activities. Like I know like our counselors, we have them like run our spirit days and or like just fun days like that. But so like this gets them more like out of just their offices and gets them more involved with the students and getting to know them a little more. And like I said earlier, like from when I talked to some of my friends about ideas that they had was having each student at some point throughout the year just get called down to the office. And I think one with this would make it a little less more, I guess, anxiety inducing when you get called in, because it's just like, oh, everyone gets called in at some point. So that was just my turn. So I think that for one would help with that situation, and being able to like bringing them in just like have a conversation that would help students see counselors as more of a, instead of just this person who just sits in their office all day, to someone who I've had a conversation with and I know that they know who I am and what I'm going through, and know that they're a person and not just some, obscure person who just works in an office.
Right. Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. Anisha, Tamara would like to know, what are some of the ways that we could provide more access for mental health for teens, in your opinion?
That's a really good question. I think providing access to mental health resources can be done in so many ways. Like Gia said, just like having more counselors or just like more people available just to listen to is also a really big thing. But also back to what my essential topic was about clubs, having really interactive services like clubs or like different groups like that could also be very helpful, just because like that way teenagers and children will feel more kind of like, I don't know, just more encouraged to enter places where like they feel that like they can have people that they can relate to or just kind of like make friends with. Because in my opinion, I used to not join anything because I was so scared of being left out or just looked down upon. But now that we are promoting more inclusivity within our school with all these like different groups that we have, because my school has so many amazing clubs, I feel like people are feeling really encouraged to enter these new areas and kind of like find themselves and learn how to get the help that they may or may not need. Definitely just reaching out and doing more interactive things, in my opinion, is just the easiest way to go, and definitely, in my opinion, produces the most positive results. So thank you. Great question.
Thank you, Anisha. Owen, we have someone who says they thank you for the comment about older experienced counselors. They say they are older and have a trouble keeping teens to stay with them in sessions. Do you have any suggestions as a team for them to connect better with the teens that they're serving?
Right. I think one thing that you could do is ask some of your coworkers who are maybe just younger teachers or younger counselors, what they do to help keep people in. And I think also just talking with the students, if there is like a visible like age gap that's getting in the way, let them know like, hey, like I know like I'm a good amount older than you, but, and then just talk about that, talk about how you can help them even though there is that age gap that's might be getting in the way.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. This question is a toss up again. And it's one that I want to ask because I would like to know what you guys think. Lori would like to ask, what do you feel is the biggest mental health challenge facing teens today? Is it depression, anxiety, anger, something else? Hey, Deanna.
In my opinions, from my experience, I feel like it's anxiety/stress because in school, like I feel like high school, you have so many tests, projects, essays, different things with deadlines need to be that need to be met. Different things like some kids have like jobs after school, extracurricular. Some people are in sports. Like it's so much, and I feel like it builds up so much anxiety. Like I got to get this done by this time.
Did we lose Diana?
Yeah, that's why we did the recording early. Maybe we can move on to someone else.
Yeah, Anisha, go ahead.
Yes, like just like what Diana was saying, I think even if it's not like a certain illness, the most common theme between everything is that there is just a fundamental lack of patience between an adult or, you know, guardian and a teenager. I know that a lot of my friends and my classmates have complained that like they just don't feel like they're given the time or the space or the compassion that they need to thrive in their environment. And obviously that's a very unfortunate thing. So I think that as adults and teachers and parents, just being very patient, and again, back to the active listening thing, I know I keep saying that, but it is also a very important thing. Just being a patient person and being a great listener could just really help fight the problem that a lot of teens face of just like not feeling heard and not feeling validated enough to actually come forward about their problems. So yeah.
Anisha, Chia?
All right, so I'm gonna say it's very similar to both Anisha and Diana, but I think just in general that you can't pinpoint. I've been stressing this, but every person is individual and different, and I think it's important to respect that. And because of that, I don't think you can pinpoint one illness or one issue that is more important than the others. I think it's important just to recognize that everybody would be different. But I do think what everybody said, especially Diana, about stress, I feel like stress causes a lot of other things, and especially in school, I think it's just very common ground for everyone. So I would say it's different for everyone, but especially stress. Thank you.
Jamal,
Go ahead, Nancy.
you know me, I always like to have some action statements involved in what we're doing, and give people some ideas of how they might follow through with what they've learned today. And there's one initiative that I think has been so useful from what I've been listening and heard, so useful for youth and teens, is the groups in school and being supported by the schools. And I know that Anisha has talked about some of her work, and oh shoot, we just lost Diana again. I know that Diana is getting ready to do, here she is, she's back. Diana is getting ready to do a group of girls in her school this summer. And I was thinking it might be a good opportunity for Diana, Anisha, and anyone else that would have a comment about starting a group like that. How could it be done? Who they need to support them to do it, that sort of thing.
That is, yeah, the idea of implementing different groups is such a great idea, just because like the more groups there are, the more there is an opportunity for children and teens to feel heard, if that makes sense. We started, or one of my peers continued a club within our school called the Alliance Club. And basically the whole idea behind that was to provide support and a safe shelter for people who are either questioning their sexuality or just do not feel comfortable expressing how they feel about certain things in their own households due to whatever environment they may be in. So how they did that was they found an adult advisor. You do need an adult in some way, shape, or form just to kind of like overhead everything, but at the same time giving the teens and their representation a bigger spotlight is the most important thing, just because that even though we do need adults for some support, having teenagers and other youth leaders there to lead is also very important, because once you do that, you'll be able to forge a lot deeper connections with everyone in your club and in your school. And of course, funding can also be an issue. I know that a lot of clubs have difficulty getting picked up just because like they don't have the adequate amount of funding that they need to support themselves. I think that if you really advocate, there are a lot of local sponsors and different alliance groups that actually like their whole purpose is just donating money to different clubs just to get them picked off the ground. For example, I was in a club or a group this year called SAMHSA here, and basically they donated over $200 to my school just because I was there and I told them about the things that my club and the other clubs in my school want to do, and how that we may have difficulty finding the funding for that. And when they heard that, they immediately took a stand and provided a lot of really much needed support for my school. So definitely look around. I'm sure there's people and there's friends who are there to support you and who care about your club, whether that's school fundraising or parental fundraising or just community raised profit. If you look around, you'll find allies everywhere. So thank you. That was a great question.
Diana, would you please tell us a little bit about what you're going to do this summer?
Yeah, so basically me and a couple of other high schooler girls are working on a mental health advocacy project. And our main goal is to target how could we help our community and our young teens, groups that's our age and a little bit younger, deal with mental health. So basically our program is getting funded by our sponsors. So I'm a part of this all girls program called Girls Inc. And through them, our board of trustees are going to sponsor us to do a community service project that deals with mental health over the summer. So I'll be working with me and 5 other girls to create a social media platform and different resources for other teens to have good mental health resources and find different ways to have a positive mental health. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds very exciting, Diana.
Thank you guys for your answers. Just trying to be mindful of the time. It's 4:19. I think I'm going to ask this question. It's going to be a group question because I find this one intriguing also. Angela would like to know, did your parents or caregivers limit your use of technology at all? If so, did it bother you? It's stacking questions now. If not, do you feel they should have? Do you believe that limits are necessary to help minimize the stress and increase the person-to-person interactions in the real world? Tia?
All right, so I'll speak on my personal experience. I have both had periods of time throughout the pandemic where I had limited screen time and I've had as much screen time as I wanted. And like I've been saying, I do really think it depends on your kid and how much they can control themselves or need to. And I also think it could be an important conversation to have about screen time limits. Once I told my parents, I was like, I need to get a certain amount of work done and I can't do that. And that's stressing me further because I'm getting distracted by my screen time. So we did put limits in place, but they were very finite and that stressed me more. So I think just having a very loose limit, just a reminder, to be sensitive about screen time is very helpful. I found that personally, but I do think it, like is said, it does depend on the person. But thank you. That's a great question.
Connor?
And I'll say, as a young person, I did not have any tech limits placed on my technology use. But I feel like that's more of a personal thing for me, because I would have much preferred my time, going outside, playing with my neighbors, playing soccer, reading a book. However, though, based on what the pandemic has done to that and like a lot of neighborhood interactions, like I don't see any kids playing outside anymore in my neighborhood. Whereas when I was younger, that's like all you saw. I feel like technology limits are important, but I would frame those limits as goals. So to increase youth agency and like youth voice, and to make young people feel like they have more power and more direction in what they do, instead of saying something like, you have to be on your devices for less than 2 hours a day, or else you will receive this punishment. You should say, if you are on your device for under 2 hours, you will get this reward. That way it's something that a young person is working towards and that they have the control over, versus making it a punishment, which is just something that you're going to want to break ultimately.
That's great advice. That is great advice. Anyone else have any thoughts on that one? Okay. Well, like I said, being mindful of time, I'm going to start to wrap up. It's 4:22. I started working with the PA Care Partnership back in 2018, and as the Youth Resources Coordinator. And as the Youth Resources Coordinator, I was tasked with the very big job of going around the state and talking to a lot of youth organizations and people who worked with youth to try to create collaboration throughout the state. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. I come from a RTF background, residential treatment facilities. And I had worked there for 17 years, and I wanted to really have more of an effect at a greater level. And so when I started working with the partnership, I had no idea how big of a platform I would have. Carol and Deborah got in touch with me somehow, and we had a conversation, and our relationship kind of grew from there. They invited me out to Pittsburgh, where they were having a summit, and I was amazed at just the youth participation, that youth were there. They were sharing what their experiences were, and they were talking to legislators and community members and people who work with youth and school officials. They had this panel. It was an awesome thing to see, and to see that the youth, so many youth were there. It was a day off of school, it was a holiday, and to see that so many youth were there participating willingly, giving up their day off to talk to people about a very important thing, such as mental health, was very impressive. And so we've continued to do that work, and Jewish Healthcare Foundation and Youth Advocacy Network have been some of my greatest collaborators. I really appreciate that relationship, and I really appreciate all of you for stepping up and doing this and expressing your views on the things that you all find important, and things that we need to really start to look at a little bit closer, and how we address those things moving forward. So I want to thank you all, Connor, Nisha, Elwin, Gia, Diana, for sharing a little bit of what it is that you're passionate about. And I want to thank Jewish Healthcare Foundation and the Youth Advocacy Network, for allowing us to use you all to share that story. Thank you to Deborah, Carol, Sarah, Elise, everybody over there. It's been a great great relationship, and we hope to continue it moving forward in the future. So now that all of that is out of the way, as a reminder, the PA Youth Advocacy Network is having a virtual rally across PA to celebrate teen mental health advocates. And so please join them on May 22nd from 12 noon to 1 p.m. on Zoom. Nancy has provided that link in the chat a number of times, and I'm sure she will post it again right now. Our next presentation is Anxiety in Youth in an Ever-Changing Global World, Impacts on School Relationships or Daily Functioning, with Rachel Love and Kristen Smith. Simon from Penn State will be our speaker. So join us on Thursday, June 9th, 2022 from 2:30 to 4 p.m. We look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you all again for attending. I look forward to seeing you next time.
And I want to say that I have been deeply moved and greatly honored to have been working with these beautiful, wonderful teens. I've worked hard all my life to jump out of some of the culture that I was born into, and to see you all living that life I worked hard to help make happen is such a gift to me. And I know this isn't about being a gift to me, but I hope that we have been a little bit of a gift to you too, to know that you are all great people, you're needed, you're wanted, and you're supported. And I'll continue to be here for anybody that I can help. And I thank you.
Yeah, I'll definitely be in touch, because a lot of the things that you guys kind of brought up are things that have been a topic of conversation for a little while now. And I'm trying to reignite the youth community of practice that I started a couple of years ago. And I think a lot of what you guys talked about today would be a great direction for us to start to head in as we reignite that. So to get some youth involved and get some of that stuff moving forward. So I thank you for all of your insight, because it gives me and motivates me and gives me something to work towards in my position. So I really appreciate that. All right, Nancy.
So does anybody else have anything else they wanted to add before we quit recording?
I'll just quickly say, don't let the conversation stop now. It was nice for everyone to come out for this hour and 30 minutes, but there should be more than an hour and 30 minutes dedicated to youth voice and mental health. So stay involved and talk with whatever youth you can in your life.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you. Again, thank you all.